Welcome, everybody, to Vision Untethered, conversations with inspirational visionary leaders. Too often, business owners find themselves tethered to and held back by their businesses. The business, as a result, is essentially held back as well because it can't operate independently of the founder, stifling innovation, expansion, and long term value growth and sustainability. We authentically unpack the biggest learnings and insights in business and in life and identify the saboteurs that keep many of us tied back. Today's guest is Rufus Crescent, the financial advisor whose firm, Waterfront Wealth Management, specializes in crafting strategies that align with their clients' unique priorities. They offer tailored advice on investments, retirement planning, and wealth management. His approach is rooted in understanding the full picture and holistic view of clients' lives and enabling them to guide toward their financial success with clarity and peace of mind. So excited to have you, Rufus, and to dive into our convo.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. First, with what you do in wealth management and that holistic health for clients that you serve, what is your purpose and passion that led you to this industry and what you do?
Purpose and passion led me to what I do. I was listening to your intro, and I would say, just for clarity in what I do, and that might help shape the answer a little bit, is that every financial planner is a financial advisor, but I don't believe every financial advisor is a financial planner. So,
Mm,
what I do and what I enjoy doing is getting involved and a seat at the table with the lives of the clients that trust me to be vulnerable enough to talk to me and say, okay, hey, we have these things, we don't know what we're doing, or we think we could be doing things better, or we're concerned, we have issues. It's not
mm,
the kind of thing that they bring up with their closest friends, with their family. So to have that level of intimacy with someone is so much more awesome of a responsibility than to just pick a good mutual fund or to say, hey, this can get you a better rate of return than this. So to be
mm,
a planner, it's look, I have clients that don't have any money with me. There's not many financial advisors that can say I'm a financial advisor for someone, but they don't invest with me. So
mm,
a lot of my clients are business owners, which
mhm.
their wealth is primarily invested in their companies. So they need financial advice just as much as the person that has the $1 million that's seeking a financial advisor. I like to say doctors get it easy because when you meet a doctor, you're like, oh, okay, you're a doctor. Well, what kind of doctor? And you're very clear. They say, well, I'm this type of doctor. Well, either you need that type of doctor or you don't.
Mhm.
Nobody ever says, oh, you're a financial advisor. What kind of financial advisor? Are you the kind that's on the other end of the 1-800 number? Are you the kind that sells health insurance? Are you the kind of is disguised as an insurance salesman or a mutual fund salesman? Or are you a stockbroker? So there's all
Right.
sorts of, financial advisors out there. So being a certified financial planner that works with business owners is really where my niche is.
Excellent. Great. I'm excited for our conversation because you and I have spoken a lot within the realm of businesses that we serve where there's so much synchronous issues happening from the business owner's perspective to that business itself with regard to value growth and value creation and the importance of planning for that and strategizing for that much sooner in the picture, much sooner in the journey than I think a lot of them realize. So I know that's where you and I get excited. And, we probably could have hit record several times in conversations we had in the past of good content. So, kind of circling back to some of those conversations because it is so valuable for listeners and understanding, and especially business owners. What are some key signs? And we've talked about these, but what are some key signs that a business owner is too tethered? The business is too dependent upon them. And how does that impact the company's ability to grow?
I think, that's a big question. Everybody's obviously on their own path, their own journey. I think the
Hmm.
paradigm shift hasn't happened with many of the business owners that they still feel that they're self-employed. They own a job. They don't really own a business. So they got into the business, and a fantastic book
Mm,
is The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, and it really goes into understanding that transition from being self-employed, which basically says if you want to double your income, you got to work twice as hard, okay? Or you can own a system instead of a business owning you, you can actually own the business. And I think that's where
mm,
they feel that if I go on vacation for 30 days, then we don't make money or things will just fall apart. I'm in too many seats because they were the talent for someone else at some point, and they had that what they call entrepreneurial seizure. Decide, like I'm the talent, I'm the one that's making all this money for the company. I'm going to go in business for myself. And they're really good technicians at what they do. They just haven't transitioned to the okay, where's my true value in this company? Is it as a technician that can make, because I'm the lead salesperson, or am I a really good manager, or is it because I am a visionary that can think of different ways to create new revenue streams that can develop and research new products. They're too entrenched in their business to strategically think about their business. So that's where you typically see it, and it's until they can really step away and start almost transitioning their mind to I am an investor in a company stock, just like they would with a publicly traded stock, but they actually have a hand in that company and they can basically, they can start
Hmm.
making smarter decisions on how they can grow that wealth within the company as an investor, not just as an owner operator.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you maybe share a personal story? And do you have a short story you share with those clients of a time you felt held back and what steps you took then to build less of that dependency within your organization?
I mean, just my personal story of how, I mean, at the time when I started hiring people and hiring other advisors, there wasn't a whole lot of people in my industry that I could model from. I had read a book called Cash Flow Quadrants from Robert Kiyosaki. He's mostly known
Mm,
for Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And understand how four different ways people make money. They can make money as an employee, they can make money as an investor, they can make money as self-employed, and they can make money as a business owner. And that's really what the book was about, is the mindset that we just talked about. And I said,
hmm
well, but every financial advisor that's in this industry is a technician. They are the product. So how do they multiply that? How do they scale that? Because we're all dealing with the same amount of hours in a day. So just to start thinking about it that way allowed me to start thinking, okay, how can I duplicate myself? Do people want
mm,
me, or do people just want what I do? People want to know I'm somewhere in the building, but they don't necessarily always want me. They want what I do. So if I can be that training person that builds and develops other leaders within the company, I knew that that was really the only way that I could scale.
hmm
So everybody, and as far as everybody's kind of in that same transitional phase to where it's like, usually the owner is the lead salesperson because they had to
Right.
be out of necessity. And they
Hmm.
don't understand, how come I can't hire someone that's as aggressive and as hungry as I am? Well, because they work for you. You wouldn't have worked that hard for someone else. You worked because out of necessity. If you didn't work that hard, you didn't eat. You didn't pay your mortgage. So
Right.
many stories, Joel. I mean, it's like asking me, who do
Mhm.
I know that has brown hair? Yes, I mean, so many business owners that I've talked to over the years is helping them really just understand that their business is and their enterprise value is often the most neglected asset that they own, but in often cases it's the largest asset they have. And when they can start
Right.
thinking about it that way, then real change starts to happen. So I don't know if I
Love
answered your
that.
question, but at least I tap danced around a little bit. So
Oh yeah. No, I think that's yeah, extremely helpful. What are beyond that mindset then? What else is hindering them from the scalability of I love what you said. Are they after me specifically and the expertise or what it is I do? And if there's a scalable model for that beyond myself, there is, hint, hint, right? That's intellectual property and executing it and scalability. What are they often missing and lacking to make that next step?
I think clarity of what they want. I think that they
Mm,
don't see what I potentially can see. So, and this
hmm
is where my value comes in working with people like yourself and the clients that you work with, is that I give them a target that they can see. It's hard to hit a target that you can't see. It's even harder to hit a target that you don't have. So when we can start doing their personal financial plan, so just take the business owner out of it. Just, married couple comes in, W-2 employees. They're here, they want to be here, and they don't know how to get there. So they do the traditional
hmm
things like save into a 401k and but they really don't know 100% of how much should I be saving. Is financial independence a reality that I can one day enjoy? Can I stay retired? Can I continue to have my lifestyle? Can I pay my taxes on time? Can I send my kids to a good college? So we help
Mm-hmm.
define the reality of, okay, if you do nothing else based on what you're doing, this is the track that you're on. Now, and if either change your goals or change your activities. Now, obviously, they have their goals. Well, that's why we hired you, Rufus. We basically need to kind of create that plan that says, okay, if I want these things, then I need to do these things here. So the business owner is no different. And we're basically saying, okay, if you like the idea of having the option to retire, most visionaries don't like the idea of retirement because they love what they do, which is fine. That's why we call it financial independence instead of retirement. That's where work is optional and retirement's affordable. But ultimately,
Mm-hmm.
giving them an idea that says, here's the value gap. Here's the big gap that needs to be filled based on where you are and where you want to be. You want to be financially independent by age 65, great, but you want to be able to spend $30,000 a month in expenses, great. Okay, we can quantify that within
Mm-hmm.
pretty close to, how is it? Every financial plan is wrong because there's too many variables, but we can put you in the ballpark and give you a target that you can see. The clarity of that target only becomes more and more focused the closer you get to it. So, but in a lot of cases,
Yeah.
you're 15, 20, 30 years away from that. So
Mm-hmm.
once we can basically say, okay, you need a $20 million valuation of this business. So what's your business worth today? Okay, well,
Right.
we can either fill that 20 million gap with your business or you can save a lot of money. I'm okay with either. If I were you, though, and I owned your business, I would probably look at making smarter decisions and smarter investments within my business because that could put you on a much better trajectory than me picking a good stock mutual fund for you. So you
Mm-hmm.
have the option as a business owner to do something that most people cannot do. But now I've given you the clarity of target. Now we're
Yeah.
growing the company, not just for the sake of growth, but the sake of growing an enterprise value of having the option to one day sell. Or don't sell. I'm
Mm-hmm.
okay. I'm actually a fan of not selling. If you can do all
Mm-hmm.
the things that get that valuation up, why would you want to sell? That's where you're
Right.
starting to have fun for the first time in your career. So it's
Yeah.
defining that reality for someone and saying, here's
Mm-hmm.
where you are, here's where you want to be. Now, what do you want to do about it?
Exactly. So when they're at that point, then how can business owners create and ensure that enterprise value is instilled by processes, sorry, that allow their business to actually operate less dependently of their constant oversight? How can they instill that and build that? And what does that take for them to get to that point where they're actually
That's where
executing then?
people like you come in, isn't it? Right. So that's
Hmm.
where I'm basically saying it says, okay, well, we got to fill this $20 million gap. What's your business
Hmm.
worth? Well, I think it might be worth 5 million. You think if I had a $5 million asset, I would want to know. So maybe you should probably perhaps get a valuation. And the beautiful thing about the valuation, and it really just, where does it start? Does it start with the financial planner like me, or does it start with the valuation debatable? I think to have a clarity of purpose, clarity of target, that's where I come in. But I can't go any further than that. You need to get a valuation. We need to understand what your company is worth and why. Okay. Now,
Hmm.
in that valuation, you're going to have enhancers and you're going to have detractors that move the value up and down the scale. Now, if we see the detractors that says, okay, well, one of the reasons why your company's never going to sell for this amount is because you're the lead technician or you are the lead relationship manager. Okay, are we just going to accept that and just work around it and just fix all the other things? But we know if you were no longer in that seat, no longer that lead technician, you weren't always the lead salesperson, lead relationship manager, we know that we can quantifiably measure that your company will go from 5 million to 8 million. Now that's a $3 million increase in value.
Right.
Now, could we make a smart investment in a company like yours, Jill, to say, okay, we're going to pay you somewhere 5, 6 figures to get a 7 figure return? Well, that
Hmm.
seems like a good investment in my opinion.
Right.
Especially if we can do that in a 2, 3, 4, 5 year period. That's a fantastic idea. So that's the idea is that you need to have that valuation that puts the spotlights on what's keeping you from your true value. And when you start to do those things, then you start to see other things snowball and
Mm,
scale and multiply because now you're no longer in that seat that's really confining the potential your company, you are now sitting in a seat to where you can strategically think about all the different revenue streams and the ways that you grow, the acquisitions that you can have, the hires you can, the training you can do, all the different things that
Exactly.
you just didn't have time to do because you're, the top salesperson.
Yeah.
It's
I
really
love,
people like you that I'm glad people like you came into my life that can actually say, okay, because we'll define the problem and say, okay, well, here's the issue. And they're like, great, Rufus, what am I going to do about it? I'm like, I don't know. I ain't going to do it for you. I mean, I know what the outcome has to look like, but I'm not going to be the one that's going to go put in a system with your management team. I'm not going to go sit with your CFO, and I'm not going to do all those things. I'm just your planner here. My skills are limited. I'm just
yep.
here to show you the reality of things. So that's
Yeah.
where I rely on people like yourself to say, hey, Jill, I really
Hmm.
need you to work with this client of mine because we're trying to get from here to here. And in order
Right.
to do that, they need to fix these things. Can you do that for them?
Hmm.
Hopefully, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. And how much of that valuation picture is really dependent upon those intangibles we're talking about. You've got the financial outlook, right? What is their revenue, profitability from what's on the balance sheet in terms of the business's value? How much of that and in percentage wise would you estimate is actually comprised of the things that are not on that balance sheet? The execution, the strength of the leadership team, the intellectual property, customer relationships, right? All those intangibles. What are you typically seeing and advising
Can you
clients?
start over with that? My internet was a little
Oh,
unstable, so I missed the first part
oh
of the
no,
question. So
you're good.
maybe we can edit that out later. So yeah,
Sure. Yeah, we totally
can
can.
you
Yeah,
restate the question?
the question is just how much of that valuation is dependent upon those intangibles we're talking about? That health of the leadership team, intellectual property, customer relationships, right? All of those that you don't see in the financial picture. How important, how heavy and weighted is that in terms of the overall valuation of a business?
I mean, obviously the again, this is a very big question. The value of the company will always be a reflection of the profitability of the company.
Hmm.
So it's when you start looking at what are the things that can make us more profitable, that's where we start to look at the concentration of your clientele that says, okay, well, a buyer's going to look at this and say, well, sure, this is profitable, but 30% of all of your revenue and all your profits come from this one customer. I find that to be a big risk. I'm going to discount that because I don't want to own that risk. You own that risk, so I'm not going to pay you for that risk. So that's one of the things. So these are
Mm,
you want that won't always show up on the P&L statement, right? So a sophisticated buyer of a business is going to know to ask those questions. They're going to know to look at the average age of your top 10 clients potentially.
hmm.
That says, well, okay, well, when those relationships end, do we have a relationship with the next in line, or is if you're the lead relationship person, everybody just loves Fred, the owner of the business that everybody works with because of your long-standing relationship in the community.
Hmm.
Well, for you to say, I'm going to turn over the keys to the kingdom and you're going to have the same profitability. Well, I think a lot of those people might leave. So I'd look at that as a flight risk. I'd want to discount your company too, unless you were willing to stay on for a 3-year transition to where they're going to love me as much as they love you. And even
Right.
then, there's not a whole lot of guarantees. So there's so many parts of the diversification of products, the innovation of the products. I mean, sure, but I'd want to look at year over year growth. So
Hmm.
there's just so many variables that really go into those valuations that go beyond the assets of the company and of course the profitability of the company, which again,
Hmm.
profitability will dictate the ultimate
Right.
value of
Right.
the company. So
Yeah, I guess a better reframe for my question and that perspective within the internal management of the company is there's got to be an understanding and a holistic understanding of everything that actually drives profitability, value. And there are
mhm.
so many intangible elements in how the business operates, not only just the financial picture and how we're managing expenses within the organization, things like that, but nitty-gritty operational efficiencies. How is the profitability across each product line, and how are we building this strategy for where we play and don't play based on that understanding, right? There's so many elements of the business that I think a lot of business owners don't see that direct correlation with the business's profit. that tie into those intangibles.
Right. And they're just not because they're not as forward thinking. They're thinking about the here and now. They're thinking about making their next payroll or just making sure that the profitability is not less than it was the year before. So
Hmm.
there's a term that I try, and I picked this up. I went through a program called The Birthing of Giants a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Many great things I took from that, but one of the things that stuck with me today, and I find myself saying it at least once a week in a meeting, is that to make every decision as if you're going to keep your company forever, make every decision if you're going to sell your company tomorrow. And I
Right.
think that sounds like two different questions, but they really are the same question.
Hmm.
It's got to be the same mindset that says, is the decisions that I'm making in the company, even though in the short term it might affect profitability, is this something that's going to make me more valuable in the future? So those are
Mm,
just some of those things that if you're growing with the mindset that I need to grow the value to sell it and make it very, very attractive to a bunch of buyers, hopefully have a bidding war. Whether you sell or not is not the point. I,
right.
like I said, personally, I think you should keep the company forever, but nothing lasts forever.
Hmm.
So there's eventually going to be a sale. But I think
Right.
that's a big mindset that people just don't really have that forward thinking. But when you start changing the mindset to enterprise value growing, it kind of forces you to look at those intangibles that you're talking about that says, okay, these
Hmm.
are these are going to affect us from being able to sell one day, whether we sell or not.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. And I love how you said it earlier is wanting to stay at that point, wanting it to be a business that you run forever. Because when it is healthy, when it is incrementally increasing in actual value across the board, that's when we're having fun. That's when you're less tethered. That's when, the dependency on you has released because you've been able to increase the value across the leadership, and sustainability of that business to grow without you constantly being pulled into it. So I like to equate it. I think we talked about this when we were in one of our earlier conversations about looking at it like our house. You've seen all the shows. Maybe I do. I'm a huge HGTV and remodel and making a cozy home. And I think if in my next life I would be Joanna Gaines or some variation of that, right? But I love the metaphor of that because so many times, we face the frustrations in the houses we have. They're investments, right? It is something that over time we either outgrow or we don't, there's certain things that are outdated. So looking at that leadership and management team as your general contractors, as your renovators, as your value increasers in that home, a lot of times those shows, it's like, I need out of this. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to fix it. I don't want to look at that thing anymore. I hate this kitchen. I hate whatever it is, right? Think of that as your business. You're so ready to get out. You're so tired of fixing things. You're so tired of the leaky faucet or whatever. And you have this shiny object over here of like what a new home would look like. Or let's renovate it to sell it. So we'll either list it or we'll love it if you've seen that show. And I think of that kind of that perspective, right? Is we're renovating the business, we're infusing in it and investing back into it, something that's valuable that we either want to keep or we do that and we're able to sell it for that much more. Oh, you froze there.
Yeah, I
Rufus, you
know.
with
I'm
us?
seeing it on my end too.
Oh,
Yeah,
you're good.
I'm still here. I'm
Um,
sorry. I know.
that's okay.
I
Yeah,
heard most of what you said. Yeah, I keep getting this little thing. We're in the process of changing out our router because of this
all
exact
good.
reason. So I was afraid of this
No,
might
all
happen.
good.
But
I think at
so
least it
anyway,
caught me
so
talking.
you
So at least
yeah,
it
no,
was
I heard.
recording the love it or the list it, right? You either love your business, you
Yeah.
can
Um,
make it the one you want to stay in, or you've increased its value so much that it makes an amazing return, then that you move on to the next chapter. So that's what I was
Well,
tying all of
I
that back
mean, I
to.
think once you get, oh no, no, totally. I think think of this as almost like a mastery level of success in your business is when you get to hire your first CEO. Imagine that, because
Mm,
most people can't get beyond that thought. Like, wait,
right.
someone else is running the day to day, somebody's making the strategic decisions. Oh yeah, because that's
Hmm.
I want to say it's they call it the founder's paradox or the business owner's paradox, something of that nature, but basically says
Hmm.
that the potential of your company will eventually grow beyond your capability. So you have to decide, do you want to be king or do you want to be rich? So the person who says, I want to be king gets to stay in that CEO seat forever. And the company eventually will stop growing unless the CEO continues to get better. That's the challenge that I'm up against every single day. That's why I'm always part of these different CEO groups, because the only way to get better as a CEO is you got to learn from another better CEO. And so I'm
Hmm.
trying to continue to make sure that I'm securing my role within the company. But it's not the worst thing to imagine that at some point I just get to be a passive owner, an investor in my business, and somebody else gets to wake up and go to sleep with the headaches of owning or running or being the CEO of the company. And quite frankly, you think about the
Yeah.
job of a CEO is really two things: increase profitability, increase value. If I can't do that effectively, then why wouldn't I want someone that can do it better than me? Because I own the company. If they can increase my value, increase my profitability better than I can, wouldn't that be a smart investment in my company? Well, business owners
Yeah.
don't think that way. They're like, well, if it's not me, then who? So it's like I said, that's just the
Yeah.
whole mastery level, but that's where you should be going. And
Hmm.
that's why I say if you can get to that level, why would you ever want to sell the business? I mean, and here I'll take you through the math. I mean, let's say you do get
Yeah.
to that 20 million valuation and you have, let's just say in best case scenario, you have it all capital gains and you get to keep 80 cents on every dollar. Let's say you're cash flowing, let's say you taking whatever, $2 million a year from the business, and you're going to basically take 80% of the value of the company, cash it in, pay the taxes, bring it to someone like me and say, Roost, I need you to make $20 million a year from these dollars. I'm like, tall order. You're going to have to take a lot more risk than you were taking by owning that business. Plus, you got a pretty hefty tax bill there too. So I'm more of a fan of take some chips off the table as you go, bring in other
Mm.
owners, bring in other partners, but not every business, it makes sense to do that. But there's
Right.
so many ways to structure a deal, but that's my own exit strategy is to bring up my junior partners, have them buy me out over time, me retain a small piece of the company, and that be my pension plan to continue to enjoy the profits of the company that I created, that
Yeah.
I built. It's not the
Beautiful.
best plan, I just think it's the best plan for me.
That's a dream scenario. What for you? What were some of those? We talked about this in our group for Visionary Forum, the positive intelligence, right? Those saboteurs. What what are some of the common saboteurs you see, or even in your, personally that we can talk about that require that self-awareness to let go of those, right? If I'm seeing things as this is only I can do this, only I can do it well, only I can do it to this standard in customer care, client care, right? Or how things get done. What are some of those saboteurs that you learned and that you see, maybe that we see commonly across business owners that prevent them from letting go, moving out of their way, allowing that succession of leadership to grow?
Well, the saboteurs is, I mean, obviously there's so many areas to go in that topic,
Hmm.
but I think it really kind of comes down to people tend to kind of hit those upper limits of what they believe they're worthy of, what they think they're capable of. But I think the saboteurs of, being a perfectionist, being something that I've created, I know how to do this. To have someone replace me, they're never going to be as good as me. I think that's usually something that you have to come to make peace with and accept that, well, of course, no one's ever going to be as good as you because only you, Jill, can be you. You have more experience at being you than anybody else on this planet. So for me to try to be as good as you, I would have to have your experiences and years of being you, and it's just impossible.
Hmm.
So understand that everybody's is in their own race, and you can only win your own race. But understanding that it's someone that could be 80% of your skill set, and then that other 20% is uniquely them, could be so much better than you at so many different levels. They'll never be the same as you because we're measuring, are they better than me based on are they the same as me? And that's not really the
Hmm.
right measuring stick. So
Yeah,
that's that, and
love
then
that.
that becomes to be a trust thing. I think I look at it as trust and trustworthy, not necessarily the same thing. A trustworthy, Jill, is a you thing. Whether you're trustworthy or not, I will assume you are. Me trusting you has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with me and how I feel in
Yep.
terms of, do I have the confidence in letting go? Do I understand your decision-making process? Do I feel that you can do things without me and you can put out these fires and that you know how to troubleshoot these things? So it's a process, and it's not something that you just flip a switch and say, you know what, I don't care, just figure it out.
Right.
Most people won't do that. So it's
Yeah.
you really have to have really that shadow, that understudy, spend a lot of time in the transition that says,
Hmm.
tell me about how you came about these decisions. I'm here in case you want my input, but make sure you
Yeah.
ask for my input often until I feel you don't need my input often. Until that happens, I'm not going to let go.
Yeah.
It's like I said, I don't trust enough to let go, which has nothing to do with your capabilities. It's me feeling a certain way. So I think that's going
Mhm.
to be the biggest issue with people transitioning in out of these roles that you're working with them and
Yeah.
transitioning them is that you just going to set the expectation that everybody's a little bit different, but it's going to take some time. It's going to take a lot of communication. You
Right.
don't. The worst thing you could do is build a wall between the two people and say, okay, you don't want the employees to go en round the new boss to the old
Right.
boss because they have the relationship. So some people will build that wall, so they never get to talk to the old boss anymore, and
Right.
that erodes trust as well. So that's just part of the
Hmm.
process. Is like I say again, so many different biases and saboteurs and the judges in our heads. They all play the part of keeping us from
Yeah.
our potential. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think the
Yeah.
biggest tragedy that I see with people who do financial planning is I think people that settle for a lesser goal because
Mm.
they don't, whether for whatever reason, let's just say it this way, they don't know how to get there. Because they don't know how to get there, they look at it as, well, it's too hard to go find a new way, so I'll just settle for something that I do know. And usually
Hmm.
we settle for what we've seen other people do. I say, oh, okay, Jill's run this kind of company. I can, okay, I've seen how she did that. I can basically go try to get what Jill has by asking her how she did it.
Hmm.
Okay, well, that'll only get you as far as Jill, right? So
Yeah.
that's that self-limiting belief that whether you feel that you don't want to grow beyond you know your station in life, or
Yeah.
you don't know how to get there. It's just people will usually choose an easier goal or a lesser goal because they do have the clarity in how to get there. So even with business planning, I tell people just suspend disbelief. Just assume you have all the knowledge, all the money, all the resources, all the time. What would you want if you couldn't fail? All those
Yeah.
things really kind of come into play. And then you start to kind of free your mind to really answer the question, what do I want? You know,
Mm.
most
Yeah.
people answer
That's
the question,
huge.
what do I want based on what I know?
Yeah.
To
What
the
do I
guys.
want based on what I know, what I
Yeah.
think I'm capable of, where there's going to be roadblocks based on these biases and hindrances and these hurdles that I just see in front of me. We shape it based on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love how we touched on trust, and I think that's huge. And your frame of that too, in terms of not whether I'm trustworthy, your leadership team, me, if I'm trustworthy and a trustworthy person, it's still a lot of that trust is on you and your feeling of being able to let go and to trust. So, what advice would you give and do you give to the business owners who are struggling to let go and to trust their teams to take on more responsibility without it compromising their vision?
What advice would I give to the visionary who's trying to let go from a trust standpoint? I think I would say to remove as much complexity as you can from what you're trying to accomplish as a team. I think that sometimes we're too ambiguous with what we want because we want a lot of things, I like to say. So you can have anything you want, you just can't have everything you want. So if you can figure out exactly what it is that you want and just have that very clear vision and purpose, and you have everybody rowing in the same direction to where there is no room for a whole lot of variation of ideas. It's that one way, and it takes a lot of planning from the leader to say, okay, we're here, we want to be here. This is that 10-year vision with so much conviction that everybody can really
Hmm.
find purpose in what they do. I think then you start to allow yourself to trust because you know they want the same thing that you want versus that
Hmm.
they want slightly a different picture. So they're going to make decisions that are not consistent with how you would make decisions. And that's where you start to erode
Yeah.
trust too. So I think it's the job of the leader, the job of the visionary to have that clear vision, that clear focus for all to be included and to
Yeah.
find purpose in what they do and to be able to contribute to that. So
Mm,
best I got there. Sorry.
that's good. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
So, Rufus, if anyone wants to learn more about you, your expertise as an advisor and Waterfront Wealth Management, where is the best place for them to find you?
I'm not hard to find on a Google search. There's not many people named Rufus
Mm.
Crescent, so you can always do that. But rufuscrescent.com. You can also email me, rufus.p.crescent@ampf. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Instagram,
Yeah.
TikTok,
Yeah.
all
And
the
if you
social
don't end up,
medias.
yeah, if you don't end up finding Rufus in any of those, just reach out to me and I'll make sure you get connected.
I would probably say that's the best way to reach me because if it's Jill that says, "Hey, Jill told me I needed to talk to you," then
Yeah,
probably somebody that she's already kind of vetted knows my business model. I don't like to sell at this stage of my career. I like
right.
to be referred only. So someone
Hmm.
that like you that says Rufus is someone that can help you, you've already
Yeah,
sold me enough. So yeah,
good.
referrals. Yeah,
That
so you can
works
find me
too.
through Jill.
There we go. And vice versa.
There you go.
Because someone you know in the business that's in the management, they need that execution and they need that team. Yeah, you're the
Uh,
best judgment of that too. That
yeah, the
that
referrals that you'll
person.
get from me is, hey, Rufus told me I needed to call you and give you a lot of money for you to fix these things. That's okay. So there's no
Yes,
selling
please.
involved, Phil.
Yes,
Yes.
please. Love it. I loved our talk today. Thank you so much for
That
being
was
here.
fun.
Your wealth of knowledge. Appreciate you.